Brutal assault on senior citizen. Bikers intervene and turn the tables. The sun was beginning to set, casting elongated shadows over the streets of Clayton. It was a tranquil evening, the sort that lulled residents into a feeling of security. Florence Adams, an 80-year-old woman with a warm smile and a penchant for evening strolls, was making her way to the bakery just down the block. She cherished this brief walk. It allowed her to stretch her legs and savor the crisp autumn air. Having lived in Clayton her entire life, Florence was a familiar face in the neighborhood, often the first to welcome new families with baked treats and kind words. But as she shuffled along, lost in her thoughts of what to buy for her grandchildren's visit that weekend, a dark figure appeared behind her. Unnoticed, without warning, a large man stormed toward her. His name was Vince Callahan, a known troublemaker with a reputation for causing chaos wherever he went. People in the neighborhood avoided him. He was unpredictable, quick-tempered, and violent. For reasons known only to him, Vince was in a foul mood, and Florence happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Before Florence could react, Vince raised his fist and swung hard. His knuckles smashed into her face with brutal force. The unexpected blow sent her small frame crumpling to the pavement like a rag doll. She let out a sharp cry as her body hit the cold concrete, a sound that echoed down the quiet street. Vince didn't even look back. He smirked, satisfied, and continued walking as if what he had done was just a casual part of his evening. But Vince Callahan had made a critical mistake. Not far from where Florence fell, 4 bikers stood outside a diner, their motorcycles lined up neatly along the curb. These were no ordinary bikers. They were members of a tight-knit motorcycle club known as the Iron Wolves, a group notorious for their sense of loyalty and justice. At the helm was a man named Luis Ortega, a bear of a man with a thick beard and eyes that missed nothing. Beside him were his brothers in the club, Tanner, a former Marine with arms covered in tattoos, Malik, a towering figure with a booming laugh but a short fuse, and Connor, the quietest but quickest of the group, a man who could move like a shadow. When Luis saw Vince strike Florence, his laughter with the others stopped abruptly. The sight of the elderly woman lying crumpled on the ground sent a surge of fury through him. He exchanged a quick glance with Tanner, who was already stepping off his bike. Without a word, the 4 bikers sprang into action. Connor sprinted to Florence, kneeling beside her gently. "Ma'am, are you okay?" he asked, his voice low and calm despite the adrenaline pumping through him. Florence groaned in pain, clutching her side where she had fallen hard. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth, where Vince's punch had connected. "That guy hit me," she whispered, her voice shaky but composed. For no reason, Connor's jaw clenched, but he kept his tone soft. "Don't worry, ma'am, we've got you." He pulled out his phone and called for an ambulance. "Help is on the way," he assured her before standing up to join the others. Meanwhile, Luis, Tanner, and Malik had locked their sights on Vince, who was now swaggering away, oblivious to the storm about to hit him. The bikers weren't about to let him disappear into the night. They broke into a sprint, their heavy boots thudding against the asphalt, closing the distance fast. Vince sensed them too late. He turned his head just in time to see Luis barreling toward him like a freight train. "What the hell?" Vince started, but Luis was on him in an instant. He tackled Vince to the ground with the force of a linebacker, sending them both skidding across the pavement. "You like hitting old ladies, huh?" Luis growled, pinning Vince's arms with ease. Vince struggled wildly, throwing punches and kicking his legs, but Tanner was there in a flash, grabbing Vince's flailing limbs. "Oh, you got some fight in you, do you?" Tanner said with a grin, his Marine instincts kicking in. "Not for long, buddy." Vince swung a wild punch, catching Malik across the cheek. The biker stumbled but didn't fall. Instead, Malik wiped the trickle of blood from his lip and smiled a slow, dangerous smile. "Oh, now you're really in trouble." With practiced precision, they subdued Vince, pinning his arms and legs so he couldn't move. He thrashed beneath them, cursing and shouting, but the bikers were unfazed. They had dealt with worse than Vince Callahan in their lifetimes. Luis leaned in close to Vince's face. "You picked the wrong day, the wrong street, and the wrong woman, you coward." By the time the police arrived, Vince was subdued on the ground, breathing hard and swearing under his breath. The officers, upon seeing the scene, were initially cautious. 4 large bikers standing over a subdued man always raised questions, but then Florence's frail voice called out from behind Connor. "It was him. That man hit me." These boys stopped him. The police officers wasted no time. They cuffed Vince, his protests drowned out by the sound of the crowd that had gathered around them. Word of what happened had spread quickly, and neighbors now lined the sidewalk, their faces showing a mix of shock and admiration for the bikers who had stepped in to protect one of their own. As Vince was hauled off into the back of a squad car, one officer lingered to get statements from Luis and the others. "You guys really saved the day," the officer admitted, jotting down notes. "He's got a rap sheet a mile long. He's been arrested for assault more times than I can count." "Figures," Tanner muttered. He thought he could get away with hitting someone who couldn't fight back. "Not today," Luis said, folding his arms over his chest. "Not on our watch." The ambulance arrived shortly after, and the paramedics checked on Florence. She insisted she was fine, but but they gently encouraged her to let them take her to the hospital for observation. As they wheeled her onto the gurney, she looked at the bikers with a grateful smile. "Thank you, boys," Florence whispered. "You're my angels today." Louis' tough exterior cracked just a little as he gave her a small, respectful nod. "You take care of yourself, ma'am," he said. After the ambulance pulled away, the bikers stood together in the quiet street, watching the last of the police cars leave. The night had fallen fully now, and the streetlights cast a warm glow over them. "Well," Malik said, breaking the silence, "that was one hell of a detour." Louis chuckled, shaking his head. "You boys feel like grabbing that dinner now?" Tanner grinned. "I could eat." As the bikers walked back to their motorcycles, a neighbor approached them, an older man with gray hair named Mr. Sullivan. "You boys did good tonight," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "Florence has been a part of this neighborhood for as long as I can remember. What you did means a lot to all of us." Louis gave a small nod. "She didn't deserve what happened to her. No one does." Mr. Sullivan smiled. "We need more people like you around here." The bikers mounted their motorcycles, the roar of the engines filling the street as they rode off into the night. The people of Clayton knew that their neighborhood had been protected not by uniforms, but by four men who refused to stand by when someone needed help. That night, the story of the bikers who came to Florence's rescue spread through the town like wildfire. Residents eagerly shared the tale, transforming it into more than just a neighborhood anecdote. It became a powerful reminder that heroes can take many forms. They don't always wear badges or capes. Sometimes they are simply ordinary people willing to step in when no one else will. The Iron Wolves demonstrated that standing up for what is right is always worth the fight, regardless of the odds. Their actions teach us about the importance of stepping up for others, especially in moments of unexpected danger. Courage is not limited to those in positions of authority. Anyone can be a hero if they choose to act when others are in need. Although the bikers didn't know Florence personally, they recognized injustice when they saw it. Their swift response serves as a reminder that communities grow stronger when individuals take responsibility for protecting one another, no matter the risks involved. The stark contrast between Vince Callahan's cruelty and the bikers' selflessness highlights a crucial lesson. Violence and aggression thrive when good people remain silent. The Iron Wolves could have easily ignored the situation, thinking it wasn't their problem. Instead, they chose to take action, proving that standing up to bullies, no matter how intimidating, can prevent further harm. Their bravery reminds us that our actions, whether big or small, can create ripples throughout our communities, restoring trust and safety. The story also raises important questions about accountability. Vince's history of violence illustrates how unchecked behavior can escalate, putting vulnerable individuals like Florence at risk. It challenges us to consider how society should respond to repeat offenders to prevent future harm. Most importantly, the bikers' intervention emphasizes that anyone can make a difference, whether in a crisis or in everyday interactions. There is always an opportunity to protect those who cannot protect themselves. What would you do in a situation like this? Would you intervene if you saw someone being harmed, even if it meant putting yourself at risk? Let us know in the comments section. Thank you.